before you make your first bow for your wreath, you want to take into account the size of your wreath. Now this wreath is 36 inches and it's very large. I usually get a smaller real live wreath. At the holidays, probably I get a 24 inch, but this one's 36. I borrowed it. It's lovely. It's artificial. It's from a company called Holiday Brilliance. And I also want to show you what it looks like plugged in because it's pre-lit and you can hang this type of wreath either inside or outside. So there it is with the lights on. It's lovely. You can put a bow on the side. You can put it in a top corner, like if you're looking at a clock at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And I'll show you what I mean. So you could hang a bow over here at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. You can hang a bow right in the center and have the trails come down. Or you can have it right at the side at 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Sometimes a small bow down here is nice too. Or you could do even a bunch of small bows all the way around. It would take a lot more time to make them, but it would really be adorable and really pretty in certain circumstances. So it just depends on what you want. We're going to do some large bows so you can see what they look like when we hang them in different spots on the wreath. To make a bow for a wreath, I like to use a ribbon that has wired edges. Now this one isn't very wide. It's a little more than an inch, maybe an inch and a half, but you can use a wider ribbon bow. So what you want to do to begin with is decide how long you want the tails to be. So I'm deciding that I want them to be pretty long for this. That way when I attach it to the wreath, I can trim it up if I want. And like all bows, you'll start on the underside and make your bows as well as you can using your wired ribbon. So you're going to decide how big you want your loops to be. The bigger the loop, the more loops you're going to need to make it fill in. This goes for packages too. When you're doing a bow for a gift, if you do smaller loops, you can get away with a smaller number of loops and have a full bow. When you do a bigger loop, you need more loops in order to make the bow look full. So I'm going to twist just like in all of the other bow lessons. And I'm going to do a lot of loops, and I'm not going to make you sit through this because you've seen it already in the other videos. So it's more of a intermediate bow because it's a little harder to hold on to than satin ribbon, but it's just one ribbon at a time. So we'll come back and I'll show you how I'm going to finish it off. All right, I'm ready to wrap my bow. I have many loops. I even stopped counting. I just used the whole roll, and it's actually 10 yards. So I'm going to take my floral wire that's wrapped in floral tape and pull it around. And I do it in green because I'm going to keep this wire. I'm not going to cut it off. And I don't even know why I have wire cutters. I don't need those. I will need scissors later. But because the wreath is green, I want the floral wire wrapped in green floral tape. Not the brown, not the white. I'm going to twist it to get a really tight fit. Now, when you're holding it and it's a wired ribbon, it's just going to be all over the place. But you've got plenty of time to play with this thing. And just make sure your twist is really good in there. And you're going to have time to decide what the front of your ribbon is and what these tails are going to do. And you're going to have time to play with the loops. So you would fluff this bow just like any other bow, except that because it's wired, it's a lot more fun because you've got more to play with, and you can make the loops into various shapes after you fluff it. And the wires you can deal with later. You can decide if you want it to be really circular looking. I'm sitting down, so I'm looking at it. Normally I would stand up and look over it or hold it out in front of me, but I want you to be able to see it. So then you can start playing with these loops to make it look so much like a professional did this. So when I said I used the entire roll of ribbon for this, it was 10 yards, and the full retail price of that bolt of ribbon was $6 US. So not bad. And I might have even gotten it on sale, which means I made this bow for probably less than $6. If you went to a place where professionals make bows for you, or even put them on a wreath, they would charge you a lot more than $6 for this bow. Especially if you find a store that sells ribbons that aren't the type that you would find at a craft store, but a higher end type of ribbon. All right, I'm ready to add this to my bow, and then I'm going to play with it a little bit more and decide what I want to do with the tails. When you're deciding where to put your bow, you just have to hold it up and decide, what do I like? When I put mine, this one I just made in the center, I think that it's just too thin. Because it's such a large wreath, I would want the ribbon width to be wider if I'm going to put it in the center. So putting it at the side could work. Because I'm working on this side of the wreath, I'm going to put it on this side. And I can either put it here, somewhere around here, somewhere either exactly at the side or a little bit higher, which is where I think I'm going to put it. Now remember, when you make these wreaths, you want to keep the wires connected. And these are wrapped in floral tape in green so that they blend in with the wreath. And you don't want to use a pipe cleaner for this, because the pipe cleaners aren't long enough. The floral wires are long enough, though. So I keep these bows for years, even the bows for my Christmas trees and the ribbons for my Christmas trees. And I also have some bows for garland, and I keep the wires on there, and they blend right in. Wreaths are thicker than you would think they would be. So whether you have a live wreath or an artificial wreath, they're really thick. So first you want to decide where you want it. And then you want to take these, and I'm actually doing this in the summer, so it's been a few months since I was playing with this. In December I get really good at doing this. So I'm playing with the wires, and I want to put them through the other side and grab them. This is the tricky part. And you want them to get through. There's two of them. So I'm holding on to one with my right hand, and I'm trying to feed the other one in with my left hand, and I'm almost there. I'm wondering where it is. I think it bent. Oh, it bent. It decided to not go through. The bugger. All right, so now I have it through, and then you just take those two pieces of wire on the back and twist them together a few times. 3 or 4 times is good. Enough to keep the bow on there, and not too much because you want to undo it at the end of the season. So now I have these 2 tails, and obviously I need to cut them, and I didn't bring my scissors. So I'm going to pause the video. Now I have a pair of scissors. I want to line them up here, my 2 ribbons, and even them up. And then I want to cut them into these. Fold it in half lengthwise and give it a snip. So now you can play with the ribbon. You can even play with the tails because it has wire in it. And then you can play with the loops and get them to look exactly how you want. If one loop is a little big and it's sticking out, you just flatten it a little bit. Some of these loops underneath are kind of flat, so I want to bring those up. And just keep fluffing it till it looks like what you want. You can even nestle these tails into the greenery if you want, until you're happy with it. And of course, I'll walk by later and I'll see something that needs a little tweaking. So I'll keep tweaking it until I'm happy. Couple walks past the wreath and I'll be done. So that's how you put up this kind of wreath with this kind of bow. I also want to show you what it looks like with a different kind of bow. And how about if we see what it looks like pre-lit? Here is a bow that I store from year to year, and I normally put it on a smaller wreath. So if I was going to put it on this larger 36-inch wreath, I would have slightly longer tails. But this time I attached it to the center top, 12 o'clock on a clock, and then I played with the loops a little bit because it's been in storage. And you'll notice these are played with a little bit too. They're just not hanging down straight. So each year when you pull out your wreaths and your bows, you can reattach them wherever you want on the wreath and then play with them because they've been stored. Now sometimes I have some other wired ribbon, and for the tails I roll them up every year and store them in a tighter space. This bow is in a bag inside a corrugated box, and it doesn't really need to be rolled up, so I lucked out there. So that's another way that you can put a large bow at the top of the wreath and have it trail down through the center. Here's another idea for your wreath. Now I took a bow that I made for another video. This is the bow from the wide ribbon video. It's 2.5 inches wide, and I made a small bow. What if you had several of these all around the wreath? That would be actually really pretty. Now in this particular bow, it's 10 loops, short fat loops, and it is wired ribbon. It's lightly wired on the edges, and in between the gold there's a netting. I didn't make any more because this was all the ribbon I had of this kind. But if you had something like this and had several of them all around the wreath, that would make a beautiful wreath as well.